Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
My name is Jon Romano, and I'm formerly incarcerated. I spent 17 years in New York State prisons. You know, one thing I can tell you why I support the fair and timely parole bill is because the parole board is a scam. We want people to be able to go in front of it, but you know what happens when they do go in front of it? The parole board does not look at rehabilitation.
Nope, that ain't right.
They look at politics.
Yep.
And as fortunately as we know, the people here don't always care about the communities that are affected most. So what do we want?
Parole justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
So I can tell you during my 17 years in prison, I remember there was this one guy I knew, his name was Will. He had outside work clearance. That means he was allowed to go outside of the prison to clean up the areas, to clean up the community. Not on a chain gang. He was trusted to have an officer who was a couple hundred yards away sitting in a truck watching him. He was trusted that much. He went to the parole board. The parole board said, "We can't trust you.
That ain't right.
You need to stay for another 2 years." He was in the community every single day, cleaning it up. And they said, "No, we can't trust you in the community." So you know what he did? He quit that job. And 2 years later, he made it home.
Amen.
And I can tell you myself, I was given a determinate sentence. Determinate means the parole board had no say over my sentence. The judge sentenced me to 20 years, and as long as I stayed out of trouble and did the programs, I'd be released after 85%. And yet the parole board still reached out to me and said, "We want to see you." I said, "Excuse you? You have no say over my sentence." I refuse it. My counselor said, "You have every right to do that." They still called me. So you know what? I showed up. They refused to come on camera because I started to question them. "What are you doing calling me here when you have no say over my sentence? Can you keep me beyond my release date? No. Can you let me go before my release date? No." And you know what happened? Later that week, I got a piece of paper, dropped it in my cell, said, "You've been denied parole." I said, "What? I don't even have to get approved by the parole board. I'd stayed out of trouble. I'd gotten an associate's degree. I took every programming there was and then some. And you know what? I came home and I became a part of the community, and I was working, and I was even working among law enforcement, helping them realize how we can prevent kids from going down the path that I was, because I committed a senseless act of violence when I was 16 years old, and I want to help prevent others from doing the same thing. But you know what? The parole board didn't want me to come home. The parole board didn't want me to help. And you know what else? I ended up working at a homeless shelter. I loved it. I was able to help people who needed it most, to help give them the basic needs that they need so that hopefully they don't go down the path to end up incarcerated. I was attacked by a mentally ill man, almost murdered. I spent months in the hospital. So now, I'm now the victim. And you know what I learned? The courts don't give a damn about the victims.
Say that again.
The courts do not give a damn about the victims. The opponents to these bills will tell you, "Well, what about the victims?" Shit. Let me ask you, what are you doing to help the victims? They're not doing anything. They believe that throwing people in prison for as long as possible is going to help the victims. It does not. And you know what happened when the man who attacked me pled guilty? The DA didn't even tell me. They didn't even tell me that he was going to court to plead guilty. I had to learn from one of the witnesses who texted me and said, "Hey, you going to court tomorrow?" I said, "For what?"
Wow.
That's when I found out. And you know, when I was able to address my attacker, and the DA and the judge, they didn't know what I was going to say. And they were worried because I'd been outspoken against him getting a life sentence. So I wasn't on their side because they believe that locking somebody up for life is their job. I told them no. And you know what happened when I went up into that courtroom? I was able to face my attacker. I was able to tell him, "I forgive you. I hope that you can turn your life around. I hope that you can get the rehabilitation you need." And today when we talk about parole justice, I'm talking about it for him as well. He deserves the opportunity to turn his life around. He deserves the opportunity to come home and be a part of the community, and he deserves justice. What do we want?
Parole justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
And if they don't give it to us,
Shut it down.
thank you.